Our panel here, Larry Walters and Bob Fisher joining us. Bob, I got to start with you. There are actual ramifications to the Supreme Court doing nothing. They're probably going to jump to, 30 states that now the ban against gay marriage is pretty much out the window, yeah?
Right. As you indicate, Bobby, by their inaction, the lower court, that is the Supreme Court rulings in the states that we're talking about, there are 5 of them, are now the law of the land within those states. And by their inactivity, the bans have been reversed by those Supreme Courts, and now it's essentially going to be these 5 plus 6 more that were pending. So 30, as you mentioned, 30 states and the District of Columbia, it will be permitted.
Well, Larry, what happens to states like Florida, where there's legal action that is still going on here? There are pending lawsuits that are going. What happens there?
We're still governed by the law of the land, which in the state of Florida, gay marriage is illegal until a court holds otherwise and does not stay that decision. So we're looking very closely at what happens in Florida, and we're looking at what happens in Louisiana, because those are 2 states where the bans could be upheld. In fact, in Louisiana, the ban was upheld, and that would produce a conflict between the circuit courts of appeal, which would most likely be attractive for the Supreme Court to then take and decide which circuit was right.
Well, Larry, or Bob, he leads me right into my next question to you, is that when does the Supreme Court ever say, no, we're not going to handle that? When do they reconsider and say, okay, now we'll look at it?
I think that's the point that Larry was trying to make.
Yeah.
Within the federal system, there are district courts, which are the original courts of jurisdiction. When you appeal from a district court, you appeal to what's called a circuit court of appeal. When you appeal from a circuit court of appeal, you appeal to the United States Supreme Court. As Larry indicated, there is a circuit that has upheld the ban against gay marriage, or excuse me, there's one that they anticipate will uphold the ban on gay marriage, and when the U.S. Supreme Court gets that, that's a conflict between these others that we just talked about, and then they will address it.
Larry, most of the rulings have been to say the ban is unconstitutional. Would a federal judge just go ahead and uphold the ban simply to create a conflict to then loft it back up to the Supreme Court? And would a federal judge want to be on the other side of history, so to speak?
Well, that's the real question. I mean, these judges have to live with themselves and their reputations. And while it might be the kind of thing strategically that would make the case more attractive to the Supreme Court, I suspect that the judges will probably follow what they believe to be the law and render rulings that they believe to be consistent with the Constitution. And so we may just see gay marriage become legal throughout the land by these various circuit courts of appeal and district courts of appeal, all rejecting the ban and legalizing gay marriage bit by bit.
Gentlemen, always good to talk to you. Thanks.
Glad to be here.
My pleasure.